Hello, and welcome back for another edition of Safe and Sound. I'm your host, Doug Bolnick, from the St. Charles County Department of Community Health and the Environment. As we enter the new year, many have made plans for improvement. On today's show, we will talk with several community leaders on the best ways to achieve this. Planning will go a long way toward limiting potential harms and getting us back on the road to recovery after a disaster. St. Charles County Regional Planner Andrew Willman will discuss a plan for protecting our families. Staying healthy also requires a bit of planning. Community Health Nurse Shelly Reynolds will examine the benefits of a gluten-free diet, and St. Charles County Health Department Nurse Jennifer Moll will discuss ways to prevent the spread of the flu. Then, Kyle Gaines from the St. Charles County Ambulance District will visit the studio to talk about plans that minimize the risk for injuries among our seniors in our community. Lastly, we will outline plans that prevent identity theft that can potentially damage our credit ratings. But first, Fran Douglas from the St. Charles County WIC Clinic will explain how planning before becoming pregnant can benefit both the mother and her child. Thanks for coming into the studio today, Fran. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Becoming a mother and starting a family is a wonderful experience, but it's something that the woman should be healthy both before, during, and after. Why is this?
Women should be healthy before and during pregnancy because it helps prevent pregnancy complications and it optimizes their maternal health. It also helps to prevent birth complications for the baby and help them develop properly. Moms should continue to maintain their health after pregnancy because it helps set a good example for their children and it also helps them to prevent health complications later in life.
You mentioned that it's important to be both healthy nutritionally and healthy as a behavior before you become pregnant. Why is that important, and what should some of the things that women should do?
There are many things that women should consider before they become pregnant. Statistically, babies can develop the most harm between 2 and 8 weeks after conception. And unfortunately, most women don't find out they're pregnant until they're maybe 3 or more weeks along in their pregnancy. And that's when the baby is most likely to develop harm. So it's important for women before they become pregnant to consider giving up certain unhealthy habits like drinking or smoking, because anything that the baby is exposed to, such as alcohol or smoke or tobacco, can harm the baby.
So I think we all know that it's important because what the mother intakes, the baby's going to experience themselves in the womb. Why else is it important for the mother to be healthy during the pregnancy?
It's important for mothers to be healthy during the pregnancy to prevent birth defects and birth complications. So developing healthy eating habits like eating whole grains, low-fat dairy, fruits and vegetables, and lean proteins can help the baby get the proper nutrients for development. Also keeping regular medical checkups with your doctor or medical provider. The reason that's important is because the doctor can help prevent problems from happening or take care of anything that is not going as planned. Mothers who do not receive prenatal care during pregnancy, typically they have more complications like a low birth weight.
And then it's also important once the baby is born, obviously, to continue those healthy habits and healthy behaviors, but nutrition is important. What are some of the things that you at the WIC Clinic here in St. Charles County can provide to help both mothers and their children?
The St. Charles County WIC program has registered dietitians on staff that can do nutrition counseling for pregnant women, postpartum, and breastfeeding women, as well as their newborn babies and children. We also have trained staff that can provide breastfeeding support for breastfeeding moms who are experiencing complications or just have questions, such as low milk supply or how do you know if your baby's getting enough milk.
So how could somebody get in touch with the WIC Clinic?
You can call our main phone line or visit our website to find out more information. Women that qualify for the program have to meet certain income guidelines, but if you call the office, we can guide you in whether or not you are eligible or not.
Well, thanks so much for this information. It's going to help mothers-to-be. We appreciate it, Fran.
Thank you for having me.
Planning is also important when it comes to emergencies. St. Charles County's Andrew Willman explains what to include in your disaster planning.
Here in St. Charles County, we face a number of threats, including floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, as well as any of the disasters that many cities face: civil unrest, terrorism attacks, fires, etc. The most important steps of a preparedness plan are to 1, create the plan, 2, get a kit together, and 3, listen to information. In an emergency kit, you should be thinking about getting together 3 to 5 days worth of supplies. Most importantly, non-perishable food and water. Food can include canned goods, protein bars, just add water, ready-to-eat meals, and make sure that you throw a can opener in there. You're also going to want a battery-powered radio and batteries, blankets, some cash to get you where you need to go, a waterproof container. Additional items of concern are any medical needs you may have, including prescriptions, first aid kit, concerns for your pet, heartworm medication, or specialized food for them, as well as recreational materials that will keep you and your family calm during the stressful time, books or activities, games that your kids may enjoy. To be alerted to emergencies, you can monitor broadcast news, radio, Facebook, Twitter, other social media outlets, as well as iPhone or Android apps if you have a smartphone. One of the most important things to have is a NOAA weather radio. It will turn on its own when there's emergency information to be broadcast. When that emergency information is broadcast, you could also hear it outside with the tornado sirens, as well as on overhead road signs or on the emergency alert system on the TV. To make a good plan, you want to have communication steps for contacting your family if you've got certain people at jobs, certain people at different schools, as well as where you're going to meet, and for each event, whether you want to plan to stay at your home or whether you would like to evacuate. And that's going to depend on the event. If it's a tornado or flood scenario, you probably want to have a plan together about where you're going to go and how long it takes to get there. Whereas if it's a quick acting event like a tornado, you want to shelter in place and have a basement or a bathroom that you can hide in. To find more information on Ready in 3, please go to health.seccmo.org.
Thanks, Andrew. After this break, we'll find more ways that advanced planning can help us this new year.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. Get fire adapted now. Learn simple steps at fireadapted.org.
2 outs with a runner on first base. Now the big guy comes off the bat, hitting .342 with 92 RBIs and 36 homers. First pitch and foul between back.
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to this edition of Safe and Sound. For some, eating common foods like breads and pasta can be a challenge. To understand how a gluten-free diet can help, St. Charles County Community Health Nurse Shelly Reynolds is here. Thanks for coming in today, Shelly.
You're welcome.
Over the last few years, we've been hearing about a term, celiac disease, or gluten-free, gluten-sensitive diets. What are some things, and what is this?
Well, celiac disease is an immune reaction to gluten. And gluten is a protein that is found in wheat, barley, and rye. So when somebody with celiac disease eats gluten, it triggers an immune reaction in their small intestine. And with time, this causes inflammation in their small intestine, and this then causes something called malabsorption. This then inhibits absorption of nutrients.
You mentioned some issues with your small intestines and just your abdomen in general. What are some other symptoms that someone that's suffering from celiac disease may have?
Many people with celiac disease report symptoms such as bloating after eating particular foods, loose stool, diarrhea, weight loss, symptoms such as that.
And you mentioned some of the grains, rye, that sort of thing. What are some common causes? Is it just eating those materials in general?
Well, unfortunately, the cause of celiac disease is still unknown. However, there are many things that we do know. Caucasians suffer more frequently than other races from celiac disease. A study from Mayo Clinic reports that approximately 1 out of 141 people suffer from celiac disease. Often, there are many times major stressors in people's life can precipitate celiac disease. So, for instance, a major surgery, for instance, maybe childbirth or pregnancy. So those major stressors in people's life can precipitate celiac disease.
This sounds like a pretty complicated subject. Is it something that you can self-diagnose, or do you need to go to a medical professional to understand?
That's a good question, and it can be diagnosed. And the good place to start with would be your primary care provider. And there is a blood test that can be done, and it tests for antibodies to gluten. And if it is positive, then the next place you go would be to a gastroenterologist for an endoscopy, and that's a scope, and it visualizes your small intestine. They generally will then do a biopsy to analyze for damage to your small intestine.
And if you are diagnosed, it's a common treatment, or is it more difficult than that?
Okay, so there is a little bad news here. There is no cure for celiac disease. However, it can be managed through a strict diet. The good news is that there are so many foods available. You know, several years ago, you could only find gluten-free foods at specialty care stores, health food stores, etc. But the good news is that at the mainstream grocery stores now, even the discount chains, there are gluten-free foods just about everywhere. But you have to be cautious. You have to be very careful in reading labels, because there's gluten hidden everywhere. For instance, soy sauce. Did you know that there's gluten in soy sauce, in gravies, in sauces? You have to be very careful in reading labels. Manufacturers are being very good about labeling foods as truly gluten-free, so you need to be very conscious and very careful in reading labels to see what is truly gluten-free.
And we've been focusing mainly on the celiac disease. However, some people have been using a gluten-free diet for other medical health benefits. What are some of those, and why are they choosing that?
Well, there is a population, about 5% of the population is what we call gluten sensitive, and that is a little medical controversy surrounding that. So about 5%, like I say, is what we call gluten sensitive. Those are people that don't fit into the category of testing positive for celiac disease. Those are people that are suffering with the symptoms but aren't testing positive. And then those are also people that just want to follow the gluten-free lifestyle. And those are people that perhaps have the symptoms but just want to follow that for health reasons.
So you mentioned looking at labels and being cognizant of that when you're shopping. Is there anywhere else that you can get more information and maybe a list of some of the details that you're looking for?
Yeah, there's a couple really great resources out there for people to follow or to look into. There's two that I'd like to recommend, and there's at celiac.org and gluten.net. And those are two places for folks to get really great information on celiac disease and if you want to follow a gluten-free lifestyle.
Well, thanks, Shelly, for shining some light on this interesting subject.
You're welcome.
Another health concern this season is influenza. St. Charles County Health Nurse Jennifer Moll will explain ways to help prevent the spread of the flu.
The flu is most threatening in the winter due to the dry and cold temperatures, which we usually see during the months of October to March. And also people are more inside during the cold, so then it's more easily spread that way. There are certain age groups that we are worried about than others. Those that are less than the age of 5 and those that are 65 and older. Also those that have certain health conditions such as chronic lung diseases, diabetes, weakened immune systems also. We are concerned about the flu because it is spread by droplets, so by coughing or sneezing. Some of the common symptoms of the flu are fever, chills, body aches, extreme fatigue, and then especially in children you can see nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Some tips to help stop the flu is, number 1, get your yearly flu shot. Wash your hands with warm soap and water, and if warm soap and water is not available, then you should use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. If you might be sick or have the flu, stay home. And if you feel that it's necessary, contact your physician. The flu shot is very important because it helps build up antibodies in your immune system, so it helps us to prevent from getting the flu. The best time to get the flu shot is before October, since that is when the flu season peaks, from October to March. It's never too late to get the flu shot. You can get a flu shot here at the St. Charles County Department of Health and the Environment by calling the Immunizations Department at 636-949-1857. And if you would like more information on the flu, you can visit the CDC's website at www.cdc.gov or at www.flu.gov.
Thanks, Jennifer, for this helpful information. Don't go away, as we'll be right back with more plans to keep us safe and sound.
Bring out the action hero in you. Be part of the greatest action movie ever. Show us how you train and eat like an action hero. Join in at actionheroalliance.com.
We don't win unless we work together. It's how we play our best. It's how we survive on the field.
Now that same teamwork can save 13 million people
affected by the famine, war, and drought in the Horn of Africa.
Go to this site
and forward the facts to everyone you know. The more people who know, the more money we can raise.
And the more money we raise,
the more people we can help.
Because saving lives doesn't take a lot.
It just takes a lot of us.
Welcome back to Safe and Sound. I'm your host, Doug Bolnick. We are here talking today about how advanced planning can protect the ones we love. You can minimize injury risk by making simple changes within your home. Kyle Gaines from the St. Charles County Ambulance District can offer a few suggestions. Thanks for joining us today, Kyle.
Thanks for having me, Doug. Appreciate it.
Falls are a serious risk for seniors. What are some other common ailments?
Well, some of the things that we see a lot of, I mean, we respond to about 32,000 calls a year here in St. Charles County, and those calls vary greatly. The greatest percentage of them are, like you said, for older adults, and falls are a very common one that we see. Some other common ones that we respond to are medical issues brought about by overdose or underdose of prescription medication designed to keep chronic conditions in check. If that medication gets out of whack, we can definitely, our assistance can be needed in those types of situations. Speaking of those chronic conditions, things like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, CHF, things of that nature, if the patient isn't as great about regulating those things and doing the day-to-day upkeep, taking their meds, controlling environmental factors, sometimes those conditions will worsen to the point where our services are needed.
We talked about falls. Just taking these simple steps to clean up your house is one thing they can do. What are some other things that people can do to help protect themselves?
Well, falls, like you said, are a very common risk, especially among older adults, and the majority of falls do occur in the bathroom. So one thing that we definitely recommend are taking a few steps in the bathroom to make sure that your bathroom is safe and you're able to get around easily in there. One of the easiest things you can do is have some grab bars installed, particularly in the shower and in the area exiting and entering the shower, perhaps mounted vertically so that you have something to grab onto whenever you're getting in and out. Having a dry mat down on the floor so that you're not stepping out with wet feet onto slick tile is another big one. Things of that nature can really go a long way in helping. As far as the rest of the house goes, things like removing throw rugs, that's a big trip and fall hazard. Things like making sure that extension cords and cords for oscillating fans, things like that, are out of the walkways of the area. Making sure the areas are adequately lighted. Having adequate lighting in the house can go a long way to helping you be able to see your way around when walking through different rooms of the house.
Even with all these precautions, someone is going to eventually get hurt in some way, shape, or form. What are some common things that you should have into your first aid kit? And then also, how would they make the determination to either call you or go to the doctor?
I see. You're absolutely right. I mean, even with all the prevention, all the safeguards in place, sometimes accidents do happen. It's what our whole business is based on, actually. Some things that one should have in a first aid kit. Gloves, definitely necessary. Perhaps if you're not the patient, you may be providing care to somebody else. Definitely want to have a good pair of gloves in there to protect yourself in the event that you need to give first aid to somebody else. Things like 4x4 gauze pads, Band-Aids, cling wrap to keep those bandages in place. Things of that nature are all good items to have in stock. You know, a lot of stores have pre-assembled first aid kits that are available usually between $15 and $20. And typically that's what we would recommend, going ahead and just picking one of those up for your house, because by the time you buy the gauze pads and the cling wrap and the Band-Aids and the Neosporin and all those things separately, you're looking at a more costly venture than just buying the first aid kit to begin with. So the one thing we always do, you know, caution with first aid kits, maybe not so much caution, but just a reminder, is if you use something from the first aid kit, make sure that you replace it so that it's there if it's needed again. That's definitely a common pitfall, is that people will use a couple of gauze pads and then not replace them, and then, next time they need them, they don't have anything present.
So how would we know if something's a little bit more than just a first aid kit? What would happen if, or what would it take to have to call you or a doctor?
Oh, well, that's a very good question. One that we get very, very, very commonly, actually. On your minor injuries, things like cuts, scrapes, things like that, for the most part, general first aid is going to be, you know, something that can be taken care of at home, that isn't going to require the assistance of paramedics. But, you know, on a cut, for instance, if it's a situation where if you're holding direct pressure with a gauze pad on that, you add the second gauze pad and it's still soaking through with blood after a couple of minutes, say about 2 minutes, I would say definitely go ahead and call for help at that point if you can't get the bleeding stopped. Other situations are if someone is unconscious, if someone is in very, very severe pain, or simply if you're not sure what to do. I mean, it's better to get help there and have the paramedics assess the situation. If we can get everything stabilized and don't believe they need to go to the hospital for further treatment, that's no problem. We can turn the ambulance around and head back to the station. But better safe than sorry, like so many things in life. It's better to just have that help there if you need it. And if we don't need to, no big deal. We'll turn around and head back. But you know, if you're not sure what to do, by all means, go ahead and call 911.
So your organization definitely works with senior groups and can help out quite a bit. What are some other resources available in our community to help out with the senior community?
There's a number of resources available in our community. We're very fortunate here in St. Charles County. A couple agencies that I would wholeheartedly recommend checking with is the Consumer Health and Government Documents Manager of the St. Charles City County Library District. Allison Griffith is a wonderful resource for seniors or anyone who has questions about their medical conditions. The Senior Services Task Force of St. Charles County is a great group to get in touch with. Both of your major hospital chains here in St. Charles County, BJC and SSM, both have a number of resources available for seniors. Bowie offers a number of support groups for bereavement, for Parkinson's, for things of that nature. Nurses and Company offers a few support groups also. Folks are very well taken care of here in St. Charles County, and really a great place to look for all those resources is the St. Louis Times Senior Resource Guide. It's got a great number of listings there available, everything from in-home care, things like Visiting Angels, Right at Home, those types of agencies that can help with a little bit of housework, meal prep, things like that, to the more advanced, true in-home medical care, all the way through independent, assisted, or skilled nursing if you're looking for a facility like that for a loved one. This guide really does have it all, and we refer to it very regularly in dealing with patient advocacy situations.
Well, thanks so much for this wonderful information,
No
Kyle.
problem, Doug. Thanks for having me.
In addition to going through your house for potential risk, it's also important to remain vigilant in protecting your identity as well. Let's see what could happen if your identity is stolen and learn about plans for preventing this.
Well, identity theft can occur in many different ways, but primarily it happens when somebody obtains your personal information, including bank account numbers, social security number, or credit cards. And once they've done that, there are a number of ways that they can obtain that information and use it. The first one is just outright theft, whereby they've stolen somebody's purse or wallet or credit cards. That still accounts for almost half of all identity theft. There are people that will go through trash cans. They'll go through personal or business trash looking for sensitive or account information. There are con artists who will call people, email people, send them letters. They'll develop elaborate schemes trying to trick the people into giving out their personal or account information. There are people that install skimmers. Skimmers are basically where you put something over a legitimate device used for scanning a card, credit or debit card. It might be at an ATM, it might be at a gas pump. When people run their card through there, then what happens is they can obtain their account number and various other information off of their credit card. There's phishing where on the computer, basically through emails, they get into your computer, they will send you something that looks like a very legitimate message from a company asking for you to update your account information. One of the other things that occurs is on the computer, and that's the malware. It's software that they install on your computer. It's going to involve several different things, but it could be spyware or a virus where you open up basically some kind of a email or attachment and you thought it was legitimate, but it's not, and they've now been able to acquire some information. And finally, kind of like, I guess one of the worst things is they install a Trojan on your computer, and when they've done that, that gives them full remote access to your computer so they can get a lot more information. I guess the thing to keep in mind is this costs billions of dollars annually. If you believe that your information has been compromised in any way, you really should call the bank or go to your bank. And if you can go to your bank, that would be even better. But you want to let them know what happened. And then in addition to that, you want to call your credit card companies. You want to notify one of the credit reporting agencies, let them know that there's been some kind of a compromise. You actually want to file a police report. And when you do file a police report, you want to get a copy of the police report. And basically, as you go throughout this whole process, you want to record all information. So you want to get the names of people that you've talked to, what companies they work for, what their job titles are, what the phone numbers are, and then what transpired during those conversations, because that could be helpful later on. And finally, you want to notify the Federal Trade Commission. And basically, you can do that when you notify your bank or credit card company. They can usually give you the information so that you can contact them. For people to protect themselves from having identity theft, there's several different things that they can do. First of all, they need to watch their purse, their wallet, their credit cards. Don't let them out of their sight, and make sure that those don't get stolen. They need to shred documents. They get their bank card statements or credit card statements through the mail, look at those, and some people just throw those in the trash. You really need to shred those first. I'd say another thing is don't give information to someone that you don't know, whether it's over the phone or through emails. Be very careful about what you're doing there. If you did not initiate the initial contact, then don't give out your personal information. And try to always avoid giving out your Social Security number. You also want to make sure that you protect your computer username and password. Many people will write down their password. You don't want to do that. You don't want to use passwords that are very obvious. Same thing goes for your PIN numbers. You want to inspect your statements. If you get your monthly bank card statement or bank account statement, look those over, make sure that everything is legitimate before you move on. Don't leave receipts laying around. You really want to get a copy of your credit report once a year. You want to look at that to make sure that everything's okay. I'd say one other thing that you'd want to do is ahead of time, write down your account numbers, your bank card numbers, the phone numbers for those companies, and keep that in a separate and secure place. In the event that there is a problem, you've got that quick access to be able to contact those companies right away. So if anybody has any questions about identity theft or fraud, they can contact us and get more information at commercebank.com.
That's all the time we have today. I hope this information can help you make plans during the coming year. Please join me next time when we'll discover more ways to keep your family safe and sound.